Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Barry sent me a story out of the Gothamist, and it's timely, and it's the kind of thing we'll be hearing more and more about. It's in particular in this case, it was a tragedy, but it's one of these things where cars that don't have people in them sometimes cause problems. So Jake Offenhartz wrote the story for the Gothamist. Pedestrian fatally crushed between two parked cars after one vehicle was started remotely. And I've had people ask me specifically, and they go, Steve, nowadays there are some cars out there that have a summon feature. And apparently you can get on your smartphone and you can press a button in an app and tell the car that you want it to start itself and then drive over and pick you up. And they have all kinds of, cautions and warnings about this. Be sure to only do this when you can see the car and make sure it's a safe place to do this. But people have said, what happens if that car hits somebody? Because you're not driving it, are you? Well, actually you are. And I'm pretty sure this is how the courts will interpret this. They're going to say, when you fire the car up with an app and have the car do something, you're operating the vehicle. You might not be behind the wheel, but the laws in most states say that the person operating the vehicle is the one who's on the hook for things that happen while the vehicle is being operated inappropriately. And so the person who's running the app, telling the car what to do, is operating the vehicle. Even if they're not giving it the turn-by-turn instructions, for instance, that you might be doing if you were holding onto the steering wheel. So if you tell your car to start and it starts, okay, you are operating the vehicle the same, I would argue, as if you're sitting in the seat and turn to the ignition to start the car. Or in an old school car, turn the ignition this way. Yeah, old school. 21-year-old was crushed to death by an empty Lexus last week after the vehicle's owner started it remotely, police said on Wednesday. A man from New Jersey was standing between two parked 2002 Lexus IS 300s on Friday evening when one of the cars was accidentally started by remote. Now, that's according to the preliminary investigation, that the phrase is accidentally started by remote. Authorities believe that the remote feature somehow caused the car to roll forward, pinning the man between the two vehicles on 148th Street. And, I don't know how you remotely start a Lexus. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanical device looks like. I do know that the fob that comes with my brand new Ford Explorer, I can put it in my pocket and I can walk out and I can just reach over, and as I reach over, it unlocks the door for me. And I get in the car and the car starts when I press a button as opposed to turning a key. And there is a way for me to remotely start my truck, but it involves an app on my phone. And I don't think, remotely start it with the fob. But there's other things I can do with the fob. Like I can cause the rear hatch to open, for instance, with the fob. I can also cause the alarm to go off with the fob. And I know that because I had the fob in my pocket when I was visiting my brother at Thanksgiving. And apparently something in my pocket bumped it. And somebody goes, hey, Steve, your alarm's going off in your car. And I reached in my pocket and I shut it off. So, I don't know if somebody could accidentally start this car by remote that easily, but that's what the official report says. Several bystanders managed to push the car backwards, police said, but in the course of doing so, the vehicle rolled forward again and pinned the pedestrian between the two vehicles once more. The victim was rushed to a hospital where he's pronounced dead the following day. According to the obituary, the victim worked at Barclay Environmental in Edison, New Jersey, and it says that he's a graduate of Sayreville War Memorial High School, and he had a bunch of hobbies, including skateboarding, ATVs, and dirt bikes. No arrests have been made, and it's unclear whether police have spoken to the driver who remotely turned on the car. Notice they used the word driver there, and I believe that is a correct use of the word. As Streets blog points out, the company appears aware of a potential life-threatening situation caused by the remote start feature. The owner's manual cautions, never remotely start the engine if you are unaware of the circumstances surrounding the vehicle, as it may cause a life-threatening situation for those located in the vehicle's vicinity. And I suspect that's just cautionary. Okay, I don't imagine that they actually have found a problem where the vehicles roll around on their own once they've been started, and instead of fixing the problem, they just put a warning in the owner's manual. But I suspect it's more a thing that you should put eyes on your vehicle before you start it. And I had a remote start on a previous Explorer quite a while ago. And I had to park it outdoors on occasion. And on a cold, wintry morning with snow all over it, I would like to fire it up But I'd always walk the window and make sure that, I don't know, maybe I'm being paranoid, but I'd always walk over and look and make sure that it looks okay, and I'd hit start. So it's unclear why the car would have rolled forward, since the remote system is not supposed to work unless the vehicle was parked with the transmission placed in park. A police spokesperson told Gothamist, "I've never heard of this happening before." And Gothamist apparently sent inquiries to Lexus to ask them about it, and no responses were made at the time that this went to press. Jake Offenhartz again wrote the article. It got posted a couple days ago. And again, it was an '02 Lexus IS300 that apparently moved after it had been remotely started. And so I would assume under normal circumstances that wouldn't and shouldn't happen. But it did, and that, they're calling it an accident, obviously, but it makes you wonder, how that could have happened. But again, I also worry about anybody who remotely starts a vehicle without looking at it. But of course, they're calling it an accident, which means that it might be that the person started the vehicle accidentally somehow, So, I've got big hands, and I'm only pointing it out because I have a smartphone. And on my smartphone app, there are often very, very small buttons. And there are apps where I have trouble because I occasionally fat finger the wrong button. And I do know that with the app that comes with my Explorer, and I forgot what it's called, but I know that the logo, the icon is the Ford F script. And I know that on that, it actually has a button that comes up right on the screen. On the first screen, it goes, do you want to remotely start your car, your truck? And it's right next to another button, and I forgot which one it was, but it's a button that I hit occasionally. And it might just have to do with looking at the various things on the vehicle, like how much life is left on the oil or how much gas is in the tank. There's one that gives you that kind of data. And that's really close to the button. At least in my mind it is. I don't have it in front of me. And so I've always wondered, how many people have accidentally started their vehicle while they're trying to check their oil. Checking their oil remotely. But it's a terrible tragedy that somebody would die this way. But, I hope they investigate it and find out what's wrong with it. And hopefully it was a one-off, some freaky thing that they can figure and say, oh, this won't happen again. But it raises the bigger question of who is responsible for a car when someone is manipulating it remotely. And I would argue that when there's no human being in the car to drive it, but somebody is outside of the car, somebody, a human being, and they are remotely operating the vehicle, I would argue that they are operating the vehicle the same way that a person would be if they're behind the wheel. So I'm sure that laws will be updated to address this. There's been a big push in the last few years to get cars that self-drive. And the question, of course, is how self-driving are they going to be? But there will come a time, whether it's soon or not, I can't tell you. They promised us jetpacks. They promised us flying cars. They promised us all kinds of stuff we never got. But driving, self-driving cars do seem to be coming. And when they get here, there's going to need to be laws addressing who's responsible when the self-driving car runs a red light and hits another self-driving car. Who gets a ticket and who gets to sue who? Which could also be a Dr. Seuss book. Who gets a ticket and who sues who? So there you go. But again, tragedy out of New York, reported by the Gothamist. Barry passed me along the story. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You can't handle the truth.